Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan's in the house today. Joint practices at the NovaCare complex. Of course, the last 2 days, the Eagles and the Browns have been meeting up there. And, of course, we'll take a look back at the Eagles and Ravens. The Browns and Eagles will play on Thursday night, and you can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Adam Caplan's in the house today for another edition of Football at 4. What stood out to him in the preseason game? What are we seeing during these joint practices? What are some of the things that are happening on this day here with Adam Caplan as we bring him into the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN? Adam, what's going on, buddy?
Mike, good to talk to you. Yeah, I just got back. It's a pretty whirlwind day for me. I was with the Ravens and Commanders this morning, and then the Eagles let us know that they were moving practice up, so I'm like, I better get out of here. So the Ravens, by the way, practice longer than any NFL team in training camp. 2.5 hours is their practices. John Harbaugh's been doing this since he's the head coach, and today's Eagles practice was just about an hour and 5 minutes or so. Yesterday was about 90 minutes, and look, when you're here in Philly, it's going to be shorter, and I'm looking forward to see what happens at Thursday night's game here in Philly against Cleveland.
Yeah, I think this will be interesting. The Browns, I think, are going to be an interesting team this year. And obviously yesterday, Nick Sirianni said, hey, they did some really good things. We'll get into what happened yesterday, but I do want to get your observations, Adam, on what you saw in the Eagles-Ravens preseason game. What stood out about that game on Saturday night? What did you take away and learn about some of the biggest questions that have kind of been thrown out there leading into these games?
Look, we'll start on offense, Mike. I usually go offense and defense. Marcus Mariota had some issues with accuracy again. He looks really healthy, by the way. Saw it the last 2 days. The wheels are great. I know when he was at the Raiders talking to them, they didn't think he was healthy. He just didn't look himself health-wise, but boy, he definitely does. The arm strength, Mike, is not a problem for him. It's just the accuracy. So now, as we look through the offense, Mike, DeAndre Swift had one amazing play. Just look, and he's had a great training camp. The issue with Swift is how many touches can you give him because of his injury history. That's going to be interesting to see what they do there. As you know, they held out Kenny Gainwell, but boy, he's got a lot of touches the last 2 days at the running back position. He obviously is going to have a pretty big role for them in their backfield. But the guy kind of showed up, and then we saw this really the last 2 days, and I saw it today. And Tyree Cleveland had an excellent game. He got a lot of targets. He did very well. He had a really good day today. Lots of targets. He won against the Browns' second team. That's a good thing. Now, Mike, it's unlikely they would keep 6 receivers. Britton Covey, who's hurt right now, should be the 5th receiver in their power returner. But Tyree Cleveland, by the way, if they cut him, is subject to waiver, so he could be claimed. And Joseph Ngata had 2 really nice plays, by the way. Unfortunately, both got called back. One on an OPI where, you could call it. He pushed up, but it was a great catch. And the other one, Mike, was the one where he caught his foot was clearly out of bounds, and he came back in and caught the touchdown, but they didn't count it, obviously. So he's had a good camp. It'll be interesting to see if he can push for a roster spot. And look, their second-team offensive line had its issues, but the big story was the big quarterback, McKee from Stanford. Boy, he had a kind of a quiet camp, but man, did he show up? But they protect for him, and he certainly delivered.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, Mariota got the start in that game, but it seemed that McKee was the guy that was a little bit had some people raising their eyes there. Adam Caplan's with us defensively here. Obviously, everybody saw Carter on that first play of the game, but man, I thought that there, and there were some other flashes and standouts on the defensive side of the ball.
And the guy's been kind of the star defensively in training camp. Josh Jobe made plays. He did very well today. Yeah, he's definitely their third corner. I know it's, I've kind of warned people to be careful of making definitive statements in training camp, but Greedy Williams is just not pushing them. Joe, the last week and a half is clearly their third outside corner. It's going to take a Herculean effort here from Williams to get it back. I don't see it based on what we've seen so far, Mike. In fact, this is the problem, Mike. Let's we don't know what they're going to do with Williams here, but let's say they wind up cutting him, right? Well, you got the rest of the guys there are undrafted free agents. Now you could play McPherson's the backup slot corner. He also, by the way, surprisingly returned punts. is McPherson going to be the fourth outside corner? We don't know that yet. That's something I'll have to take a look at, but they just don't have any experience. Like, they have enough people, but they don't have experience at backup outside corner. That's certainly a concern. But Josh Jobe has been a really good story of development. I got to give the Eagles front office credit. They stuck by this kid last year. He didn't really play, but he's been the star of their offseason, their OTAs, and particularly now in training camp. And also, by the way, the joint practices, he's looked good, and the first preseason game.
Another corner, I guess, was Ricks, who had the interception return for a touchdown. People would say, hey, what did that mean for him, Adam? So does that do anything for him? Is he a guy to keep an eye on the rest of the way? Has he put himself into any sort of conversation?
I would be surprised, Mike. I don't. They'll keep 5 corners for sure. I don't see 6. It becomes a numbers game. It's really hard. It just and he's the kind of guy, like Moshe and I were talking earlier today when we were just talking about some of the guys who were pushing for roster spots. And I know how it goes with front offices. They always look at it like this: who do we like that we think we could get through waivers? So we talked about Noah Tungiai 3 years ago, a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago, and it's a guy they really want to be their wide tight end, and the Cardinals. The Colts. The Colts claiming off waivers, but that rarely happens. But look, that's going to be an interesting thing with these backup corners. The Mekhi Garner. You mentioned Ricks. We mentioned Jobe. There are other guys there, and they just don't have any experience. That's the thing that the Eagles have to ask themselves. They want to go really young at backup outside corner because, again, they're one injury away from being starting players who are playing a lot.
Adam Caplan, football at 4. All right, Browns are in town. Joint practices, Monday and Tuesday. So what are these? Why are these? And how important have they become?
They're really important because, as some of the Browns told me, you get different looks. And not only that, the Eagles' offensive linemen, defensive linemen are taught a different way. Their technique is different. And it's something that the Browns players would not see unless they were practicing against the Eagles. So that was a good tidbit I got. I thought that was interesting. I had not thought of that. Different techniques that they would not face. And by the way, they actually may have faced some of these techniques. You remember the Fangio scheme that the Eagles are running on defense. The Browns are probably, I'm sure they'll face somebody who has that. So it's about getting different looks and facing different schemes. Yeah,
I know you get a chance to face someone else and you can say, hey, we want to do 3rd down and 7 here because you might not get a 3rd down and 7 in the game on Saturday night or Thursday night, but you can run a 3rd down and 7 play over and over and over and over again, right? I mean, that's kind of the theory behind it.
Right, situational. In fact, joint practices are almost all situational. 2-minute, 4-minute, special teams, and then red zone. Man, boy, both teams did a lot of red zone looks today. And I would tell you, we're going to talk more about this Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern on all of our platforms, but I would tell you the Eagles had way better energy. I think what happened in Monday's practice, Mike, is I just don't think the Eagles had great energy. You know why? Because they played Saturday night. It was really hot for the first hour of practice. Then what happened was the cloud cover was heavy, and it made it much cooler and much more tolerable. Today, Mike, we didn't have that. It was before, and maybe that's why they cut it a little bit short today. But there's no question, and I should mention, there's no question last year the Eagles absolutely crushed the Browns in Berea, Ohio for 2 days when they practiced with them. They just dominated. It's not been like that the last 2 days. It's been Browns were probably better on both sides of the football yesterday. Not probably, they were. Where today I think was more even. And we'll look into it, but that's kind of the way I see it today. And the Eagles had much better energy today, and they needed to.
Adam Caplan, football at 4, Inside the Birds podcast. All right, Eagles offense against the Browns defense. Sirianni admitted that, hey, we didn't have our best. Jalen Hurts, the offensive line, got some issues there. What else did we see from the joint practice on Eagles offense?
Yeah, boy, they were much better today. Now, were they great? No. Myles Garrett, it's weird. He was in uniform. He was doing sprints. I don't remember seeing him. What happened, I think, yesterday, Mike, is Juergens had a rough day. That's really and remember, Dickerson got hurt. He didn't practice it. He got hurt very early in practice and didn't return. And I think you're seeing the depth and being tested here. The Driscoll definitely got a lot of reps. I didn't see him much yesterday. In fact, what happened yesterday was they went with Josh Sills and Sua Peta to fill in for Dickerson yesterday. Kelsey tweaked something yesterday, but he was fine today. He practiced. There was no concern there. But look, their offense had more energy. No question about it. Execution was better. And there's this one great play. We'll detail this more on our show on Thursday. But Hurts and Brown hooked up on a really cool play. And their protection also. Now, remember, Mike, sacks in practice because you're not allowed to touch the quarterback. Either it's clear when the guy gets sacked or they just stop the play and do the next play. And there were not as many sacks. Clearly, there were not as many sacks today given up.
Adam, let's get your take on the defensive side of the ball for the Eagles against that Browns offense. Obviously, that Browns offense is interesting because we don't know what to expect from Watson. They've got some talent over there, though. So what was some of the key things and takeaways from the Eagles' defense against Cleveland?
Yeah, Elijah Moore, who's I think would be a breakout receiver. They got him from the Jets. He's not practicing because of a ribs injury, but when you look at the Eagles' defensive line, they were better today. They definitely brought it. They were actually decent yesterday, but there were some good pressures. In fact, they had Blankenship had another interception. Now this one, it was a bad throw. He forced it. In fact, what I've been told, when Watson struggled, it's a carryover from last season. He forces throws he thinks he can make, and Blankenship just read it and just dove and got it. It was just not. It should have been to the attendant pass target's other shoulder. It's just not a good throw. But the discipline was way better today. And I'm telling you, Josh Jobe, man, this is a really good story. This is a great development of this guy. And we'll see going forward. You know, we know the veterans play like almost every play, Mike, Slay and Bradbury. I just wonder if they'll let these young kids sub a little bit this season.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4. Good stuff there, and obviously Thursday night. You'll be back on Friday, Adam. So what is something that you will be watching for in the game on Thursday night? Because I don't know. I mean, you got these joint practices. I would imagine we're not going to see the starters again. So is there something that you will be watching for Thursday night?
Yeah, just the 2s and 3s. Particular like, let's say Josh Hill starts, right, at one of the guard spots. Like, remember, he made the team last year. Then he had his off-the-field issue, but he initially made the team. Then he won the commissioner's exempt list. It's just building off the last game in these practices, as you were talking about, Mike. And Tyree Cleveland, can he keep this up? Going against the Cleveland Browns, he's really brought it the last couple days. And in that preseason game, can he make it tough on the coaches in the front office? It's just the 2s and 3s overall, Mike, and we'll review that when I talk to you Friday at 4 o'clock. But that's really it. And also, look, the punting battle, it's still going on. Tipos and Zettner, is someone going to emerge there and clearly take the job? If not, we had reported a couple months ago that the Eagles put a waiver claim in for former Jets 6th-round pick Braden Mann, who was claimed by the Steelers. And by the way, the Steelers have 2 punters in camp, Mann and Presley Harvin. So that's just something. I know we don't talk about special teams that much, but that's something we'll be keeping an eye on.
All right, Adam Caplan's back on Friday for Football at 4. Eagles are back on Thursday night right here on 97.3 ESPN. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
All right, quick little breakdown of the Eagles for Football at 4 today on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.